Okay, so back when I asked you guys what kind of things you wanted to learn about the X32, one of the first responses that I got was, Ed, please show them how to ring out a room properly. And I want to do that, but I'm not going to do that today because I think that the first thing that we want to do before we start trying to ring out a room is tune the room.
At McRae Music.
Hey guys, how are you doing? I'm richly blessed. I pray that you are as well. All right, we need to tune our room. Now, tuning the room is dealing with the frequency response of the room and trying your best to flatten it out, right? Every room has a different frequency response. What does that mean? That means in some rooms, the low end is going to be inherently more big and boomy and bold. In other rooms, you might have like a major spike at a certain frequency. Let's say in the 2K range, there's just a weird spike going on. Maybe there's a weird dip going on at 600 hertz or something, right? Every room is going to respond differently, right? And so if we just jump into a room and we just start trying to EQ individual sources, you are going to spend a lot of time fighting against the nature of the room. Because one, you don't know what the nature of the room is, and two, if you don't do your best to mitigate the nature of the room, it could possibly be working against you, right? So in this video, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you how we can use the pink noise oscillator on the Behringer X32 to send pink noise through your system. Now, pink noise is a signal that has equal amplitude across all frequencies. It's literally a flat signal, right? Just at the same volume at every frequency. Right, that's my pink noise impression. All right, and we're gonna send that out and we're gonna set up our RTA settings inside of the X32 so that it receives signal and shows us signal from a reference microphone, right? Now, if you don't have a specific reference microphone purchased, not to worry, just use one of the microphones you're gonna be using in the room. I'll talk about that and show you how to set that up, right? But we want to get signal from that so that we can see in our frequency analyzer what the room is doing, and then we want to use EQ on our main left-right bus to try to flatten that out as best we can. All right, so that's what we're going to do. I am going to show you how to ring out a room in another video. I would prefer to do that in an actual live setting and not here in my studio. So we'll get to that. If you want to see that right now, Byron Bell, he's a friend of the channel. He's an amazing engineer. He actually did a video showing how to properly ring out stage monitors probably a couple months ago. I'll put a link to in the description to that video. If you want to see that right now, go check that out. He's going to show you everything you need to know. And then come back here later when I get to do that. When you see the video from me pop up in a live setting doing that, come back and watch it again. Watch my video too over here, all right? Before we get into this, please take a moment and like this video and subscribe to this channel. And feel free to hit join if you'd like to become a part of the control room community and get some members only content. And without further ado, let's learn how to tune our room. All right, guys, let me show you how we can use pink noise to tune our room. And again, we're using pink noise because pink noise is giving us equal amplitude across all frequencies, right? Which means that it's going to show us exactly what the room is doing without it being altered by, the wave signal being at different inflection points at different frequencies, right? Now, before we turn on the pink noise, and I'll show you how to do that, let me show you how we can configure our RTA settings. Because what we need to do, our goal here is we have our reference mic. And for the purposes of this video, I'm using an SM7B. I will put up an image of what my setup is here. I just have an SM7B. I have it pointed at one of my studio monitors, all right? In a live setting, right, you are going to ideally want to have a reference mic. Now, I don't own a reference mic, but a reference mic, and I'll put a link in the description to one. SonarWorks makes them, other companies might make them. These are microphones that have a flat frequency response pattern so that, again, the microphone is not impacting what we are seeing, right? But you don't have to have that. If you don't have that, use one of the microphones that you're going to actually be using, or the artist or whoever is going to be using in that environment, and you can get good results that way as well. All right. So we've got that set up. My microphone is coming in on channel 1. Very important to remember that. Channel 1, that's where my reference mic is. So the goal is we're going to set up our RTA settings so that the RTA graph here is displaying or receiving and displaying signal from the reference mic on channel 1. Let's do that. How do we do that? We're going to go to our meters area. So I'm going to go to meters, the tab over to RTA. All right, now we can see that we're already seeing signal here, and that is because my source is already set to channel 1. This is probably from me playing around with this at some point in times past, all right? But it's already set to channel 1. Watch what happens if I change that to channel 2. I'm not seeing anything. Why not? Because I don't have anything on channel 2, right? So you want to make sure that that is set to whatever channel your reference mic is going to be on, all right? Okay, now there are several other things in here that we want to configure. So we're going to go from left to right here. First thing is I have this scroll bar here that's going to let me, or this radio dial here that's going to let me get to all these different settings here. So I can choose whether or not I want my results here to be pre-EQ. In this regard, I don't want that because when we try to flatten out the room, I want to see how the EQ curve I'm doing is affecting the signal. So we're going to leave pre-EQ off. I could choose to having a spectrograph here instead, right? Here, GEQ defaults, right? So if I'm using a graphic EQ, by default, the RTA source is not going to be it's not going to be linked to this channel, right? So if I wanted to use my graphic EQ to flatten out my room, I would say use RTA source, right? So that way, when I look at my graphic EQ, matter of fact, let's just go there real quick. If I go over here to my graphic EQ and I were to take a look at it, right, we can see that this is based on my RTA source. Notice there are no options here of switching that, right? So if I wanted to display this based on my RTA source, I have to do that from here, right? So that's going on there. We can leave that on for now. That's fine. I then have options here for it doing, post graphic EQ. I could have it do a spectrograph there instead. This is an important one, RTA source solo priority, right? What this means is when I start looking at my graph here, my frequency response on my EQ for my main left-right bus, I need to be able to see the response from the reference source here, right? So we can see here, if I go over here to my main left-right bus, and we go to the EQ, and I've actually already got some stuff going on in here. Let's reset this. We can see that currently there is nothing showing up here, right? However, if I were to solo my channel, and even I have it muted, it's not coming out the speaker, right? But if I were to solo this, now I am seeing the response here specifically from that, and that is what that means. Without that, I would need to, it's going to be pulling from the main left-right bus, right? So you can see now, as soon as I unmute that, now it's working, right? I want to make sure that when I hit solo, right, I want to know that what I'm seeing here is coming from my reference mic, all right? So that is what this guy's solo priority is, all right? This is good. Okay, a couple other settings here. We have peak hold, right? So you can see it's giving me these little white horizontal lines that represents the peak of my signal. And so obviously if I have this to a short time, it's not going to hold at all. It's off completely. If, a short time, it's going to come and then go away. Longer time, right, the holds are going to stay there. All right. I like to leave it right around 2 seconds, which is why that's where it was before. Then we have the decay. That's how quickly the bars are going to disappear, right? If I have a fast time, then they're going to disappear quickly. Long decay time, they're going to linger, right? I like to leave it right around where it was, around like 2.52. Here is the gain, which is controlling kind of the signal into this. I like to leave that at 12 o'clock, which is around 30 dB. You can, adjust that to taste if you want to as well. And then we can come here and we can play around with our EQ overlay and kind of see how that is looking. All right, so this is good. If I don't want colored bars too, I could turn those off and just see that. I like the colored bars, and that's that. All right, so these are our RTA settings. So this is great. We have it where it is receiving signal from our reference mic, and it's showing up in the way that we want it to show up. All right, this is good. So now I want to configure my oscillator to spit out some pink noise. So we're going to do that by going to the monitor section here. So over here on monitor, I'm going to click view, going to tab over to oscillator. Okay. And mine is already set to pink noise. I've got this solo. Let me unsolo that. Mine is set to pink noise. Again, we want that so that it's giving us equal amplitude across all of our frequencies. So here's there. If I need to change it to that, I could do so. I also have and this is important, I can choose where I want this to come out from, right? If I was ringing out my main monitors, which I am at this point, I want to make sure it's on the left, right, or if I just wanted to test, sometimes when you're first setting up your PA, if you have an independent left-right situation in a larger room, you might want to check just to make sure the left is working, make sure the right is working, make sure that they're balanced, right? Make sure if mid, we could do all that. So I'm going to leave it set to left, right. If we were testing a matrix or testing a bus for like a side fill or a stage monitor or whatever, we could go to that specific bus and tell it to come out of that bus, right? All right, so we got all that set, and then all we got to do is hit generate, and you got pink noise. All right, technically, if you wanted to, I haven't tried to do this, but you could probably connect this generate to one of these assigned buttons here. I doubt you really would want to do that because in the middle of a show, you might bump it or somebody might press it by mistake, and now you got this, right? So you might not want to do that, but you probably could, all right? All right, so everything is good. So now what we're going to do is I am going to turn on my pink noise, and I am going to, now, oh, by the way, you can change the level of the pink noise here, right? So you want to make sure it's a healthy level so that you can, see good stuff. I'm going to turn on my pink noise. I'm going to go to the EQ for my main left-right bus, and let's just see what is going on in my room here. Let's do it. All right, so we can see, I'm going to boost it up a little bit more so we can see a little bit better, but we can see that there are some dips going on. Looks like there's a fairly big dip happening in the in the mid-range there, the low mids around the 400 or so. And there were some peaks there. Let's try it one more time, and let's see if we can get a little bit healthier of a signal. At first, it was so big because I had not soloed that channel, so you saw once I soloed it, now it's pulling from the reference mic. Let's try that one more time. All right, so so you can see there, we had a pretty significant dip. You can see it fading away, happening right in here in between somewhere around 300 or 400 or so. We had some peaks going on and some other things. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that on one more time, and I am going to use EQ to try to mitigate any major things that are happening there. And try to flatten the room out a little bit. All right, you ready? Let's try it one more time. Pink noise, right? You guys are audio folks. You're used to pink noise. I'll turn it down just a smidge, right? Let's do it. Give it a shot. right, so there we go. So again, it's not perfect, right? And we could tweak this more and more, but it is a more even response. So we see here, I put a couple of boosts here to deal with some dips that were going on. We have some dips here to deal with some peaks that were happening. And the purpose of this is to try to give us more of a flat response in our room so that now we can effectively go in and try to ring out our monitors, ring out our PA with EQ on our mics, or using a graphic EQ where necessary, and we're not fighting against the room, right? We are working with this. Now, I might decide I want to redo this same process, maybe on my stage monitors. Maybe there's a different frequency response happening on stage that I want to adjust for. Maybe with my side fills, right? I want to do that. And then ultimately, what I want to end up doing is using my graphic EQ. If we go back to effects here, using my graphic EQ to then start getting rid of troublesome frequencies. Again, not going to get into the ringing out here. I prefer to do that in an actual live setting, but I would use the graphic EQ once things are flattened out. And you could also choose to use the graphic EQ to do the flattening out as well, if that's what you want to do. I like to use the parametric EQ to do that, but you could do the same thing here. I like to use the parametric EQ to flatten out and then use the graphic EQ to get rid of any individual troublesome frequencies that are causing trouble. Usually they're going to be up here somewhere in the upper mids to the highs, and somewhere in like the low mids is usually where those feedback frequencies show up. But weird stuff can happen. But we'll get to cover that, the ringing out process, in another video. But I hope that this helps you learn how to tune your room using pink noise. Okay, guys, I hope that was helpful to you. That actually could be helpful to you in a studio setting as well. There are, other reference softwares and things, again, SonarWorks, that we can use in a studio setting to do that. But I hope that that helps you. I have found, and to be transparent, I used to not do this. I just started doing that probably over the past year. I would just jump in and just start ringing stuff out as trouble popped up, and getting rid of different frequencies, and it creates a lot more work. You can do it that way, but it creates more work. And I found, as I've started to try to flatten the room out first, it made life a lot easier. I was able to push microphones, push the gain on things a little bit more, get more out of my system because the room was properly tuned. All right, so I can tell you from experience, this works, and it's going to make your life easier, I believe. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. Jump in the comment section and give me some ideas. What other things do you want to learn about the X32? Because right now, this is all I got, right? In terms of ideas for videos, is this one, and then ultimately doing the actual ringing out in a live setting. We might do some other videos in a live environment. But if there are other specific training things you want to know about the Behringer X32, leave comments in the comment section and let me know. And you never know, it just might show up as a video. All right. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you, and I'll see you again in another video. Peace. Thanks for watching. Hey, here's some other content you might want to check out. Just a suggestion, no pressure. Feel free to watch whatever you want on the channel. Also, why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button? That way you can be notified when new videos are coming out. And feel free to hit that join button too for members only content in the control room. See you next time.